Roy Patterson, Interim COO, Transition Operations, Titan Corporation. I slid that business card across the conference table like I was dealing the winning hand in a poker game I'd been playing for 15 years. The kid's face went white as fresh snow. 20 minutes earlier, Chelsea Morrison had fired me in front of 6 executives from our buyer. Now she was staring at my new title like someone had just told her Santa Claus was real and royally pissed off. But let me back up and tell you how a 52-year-old Army Rangers vet ended up outflanking a trust fund baby in corporate warfare. The name's Roy Patterson. Friends call me Pat. Picked that up during my Rangers days back when I thought hard work and showing up on time actually mattered in business. Turns out it does matter, just not the way I thought it would. In the Rangers, we had a saying, proper planning prevents piss-poor performance. Corporate America needed that lesson. I've been at Steel Core Industries for 15 years. Started as operations manager when we had 35 people working out of a converted warehouse in Detroit. Built every system that made this company worth $850 million to Titan Corporation. Every supplier contract, every EPA compliance protocol, every safety procedure that kept us alive when things went sideways. That's what Rangers do. We secure the objective and hold the line. Then our CEO decided to retire. No warning, no transition plan, just a goodbye email on Friday and an empty corner office on Monday. In the military, we call that abandoning your post. That's when Chelsea showed up. Kid's 28 years old, CEO's niece, has an MBA from Stanford and exactly 0 days of real-world experience. First thing she did was order new business cards with Chief Executive Officer in gold lettering and start a company Instagram account. I should have known right then we were in for a goat rope. Chelsea called an all-hands meeting her first day, walked in wearing a blazer that cost more than my truck payment, and opened with this gem. We're going to disrupt some paradigms, people. I looked around the room. Our head of finance was 45 years old with twin boys heading to college. Our safety director had been running steel plants since before Chelsea learned to drive. These weren't people who needed their paradigms disrupted. They needed steady leadership and clear direction. They needed someone who understood the mission. But Chelsea had other ideas. See, there's a difference between leading and performing. I learned that in the Rangers. Real leadership happens in the details nobody wants to handle. The EPA reports that keep federal regulators from shutting you down. The union negotiations that keep your workforce happy. The backup systems that save your company when everything breaks at once. That's ground truth. The reality of keeping operations running while everyone else plays politics. Chelsea's version of leadership was LinkedIn posts and buzzwords. She talked about leveraging synergies while I was fixing the equipment that actually made the synergies possible. Within a week, 3 department heads were calling me directly. Not Chelsea, me. Legal couldn't finalize our biggest contract because Chelsea claimed she had master access to our signature authority. Turns out she thought that was just a feeling, not an actual system permission. In the Rangers, we'd call that a cluster foxtrot. Everything's broken and nobody knows why. Finance couldn't get budget approvals because the kid kept replying circle back to every email like it was some magic spell that made problems disappear. Our safety director was stuck because Chelsea had streamlined our OSHA compliance process by removing the steps that actually verified we weren't killing people. Me, I kept the lights on, made the calls, fixed the problems, worked weekends to clean up the messes she created during the week. Standard operating procedure when your command structure falls apart. You hold your position and maintain mission readiness. Look, I'm 52 years old. My son's a senior studying engineering at Michigan. That's $35,000 a year. My daughter's a junior in high school. I can't just stop paying. My wife, Pat, has been patient with the long hours for 15 years because she knew I was building something real, something that would set us up for retirement. She's a nurse, knows about keeping people alive when systems fail. I wasn't about to let some kid with a business degree flush that down the toilet. In the military, you don't abandon your people or your mission. Same rules apply in civilian life. But I was getting tactical fatigue. Dead tired, not just from the work. From watching 15 years of careful planning get torn apart by someone who thought innovation meant ignoring everything that came before her. That warehouse safety system that saved us during the plant explosion in 2019, I built that. The supplier relationships that got us preferred pricing when steel costs went crazy during COVID, those were mine. the disaster recovery plan that kept us running when our main server died. I wrote that on a Sunday afternoon while Chelsea was probably posting motivational quotes on social media. So when Anthony Torres from Titan Corporation reached out asking if we had any continuity frameworks to help with the acquisition, I didn't hesitate. This was reconnaissance, gathering intel for the people who actually understood the terrain. I didn't give him corporate speak. I gave him ground truth. One document, password protected, showing exactly how SteelCore actually worked. Not how Chelsea said it worked, how it really worked. The systems that mattered, the people who knew what they were doing, the supplier relationships that kept us profitable, the compliance protocols that kept us legal. I wasn't trying to save my job. I'd already started updating my resume, but I wasn't going to let 15 years of work get destroyed by incompetence either. Rangers don't leave fellow soldiers behind, and they don't let good work get wasted because someone above them doesn't know what they're doing. Anthony responded within an hour. "This is incredibly helpful. Can I share this with Chelsea?" I wrote back. "Maybe hold off on that for now." That was the moment everything changed. Sometimes the best tactical move is to let the enemy reveal their position first. Suddenly I was getting copied on emails I wasn't supposed to see. Internal risk assessments from Titan's due diligence team. Integration timelines that mentioned my name specifically. HR forecasts that referenced key operational personnel retention. Intel was flowing my way, and in the Rangers, good intel is worth more than gold. Then Anthony sent me a direct message. "Roy, what's your assessment of the safety integration timeline under the current leadership structure?" Not ask Chelsea what she thinks. He asked me directly. That's when I knew I had established contact with friendlies behind enemy lines. Then came the legal document sent to my personal email at 11 p.m. on a Wednesday. No subject line, just a file called SteelCore Transition Staffing Internal Draft. I expected the usual corporate word salad. Instead, I found something interesting. Under Key Personnel Transition Phase, there was a line item for Continuity Lead. The name field was blank, like a job posting nobody had filled yet. I saved that email in a folder I called Operational Orders because sometimes corporate wars aren't won in boardrooms. They're won in footnotes and organizational charts that nobody reads until it's too late. That's basic reconnaissance. Document everything. Trust nothing until verified. Meanwhile, Chelsea was busy playing CEO. She brought in her sorority sister Brittany Walsh as Chief Innovation Officer. That's not a real job title. That's what you call someone when you want to pay your friend but can't think of actual work for her to do. In the military, we call that nepotism, and it gets people killed. Brittany showed up with a standing desk, a ring light for video calls, and a whiteboard covered in words like disruptive and scalable. She'd never worked anywhere else. Her entire business experience was helping Chelsea run their sorority's fundraiser budget. I'd seen this before, put unqualified personnel in critical positions and watch the whole operation fall apart. Within days, everything started falling apart. Our supplier payment system crashed because Brittany optimized the approval workflow. She removed 2 verification steps that existed because of federal compliance requirements. Not because they were inefficient, because they were legally required. Classic rookie mistake. Changing systems you don't understand. One of our biggest steel suppliers drove to our office and threatened to repossess equipment. They'd been waiting 3 weeks for a payment that was stuck in Brittany's improved system. In the Rangers, when your supply lines get cut, you've got maybe 72 hours before mission failure. I found Chelsea in the break room laughing with Brittany over protein bars while our entire supply chain was about to collapse. Time for a direct approach. "We've got a serious problem with supplier payments," I told her. She held up her hand like a traffic cop. "Roy, maybe if you focused less on problems and more on solutions, we wouldn't be having this conversation. You handle operations. Let strategy handle the big picture. Just operations. Never mind that I was the one who negotiated the contracts that kept our costs down. Never mind that I'd already handled 5 emergency supplier calls that morning while Brittany was taking selfies with her whiteboard." In the military, you learn to recognize when someone's giving you orders they can't back up. That's when I shifted tactics. Stopped talking in meetings. Mostly because I wasn't invited anymore. Chelsea had decided I was resistant to change and started excluding me from strategic discussions. Fine by me. Sometimes the best way to win is to let the enemy think they've already won. I stopped offering solutions, stopped volunteering to fix problems before they became disasters. I just watched, documented everything, and quietly started preparing for what I knew was coming. Because in my experience, incompetent leadership always creates its own downfall. You just have to be ready to step in when it happens. 3 weeks after Chelsea took over, our biggest logistics partnership fell apart. Brittany missed a renewal deadline, not by a few days, by 3 weeks. The contract that kept our entire Midwest distribution running just expired because she thought auto-renewal meant it happened automatically without any paperwork. Our logistics partner gave us 48 hours to fix it, or they'd start moving our account to the bottom of their priority list. In supply chain terms, that's like being told your house is about to burn down and you have 2 days to find a fire department. Mission-critical failure incoming. Titan's legal team flagged it immediately. They weren't idiots. They could see our operational foundation cracking in real time. Our finance director called me in a panic. "Roy, do we have any backup logistics contacts?" Of course I did. I'd built a backup supplier list back in March, knowing we'd need it if this circus kept going. Always have contingency plans, basic military planning. I handed it over quietly. Didn't CC Chelsea, didn't make a big announcement, just gave her what she needed to keep the company from imploding. But Titan noticed. That's when Anthony reached out personally, not through official channels, just a direct message. "You okay over there? Just checking in." 7 words that changed everything. Because if Anthony was reaching out personally, that meant my silence was getting louder than Chelsea's noise. That meant I still had operational value they recognized. I wrote back, "Yeah, but you might want to look at page 12, paragraph 2C in that staffing agreement." I didn't explain what it said, didn't need to, because paragraph 2C was the part nobody reads, the legal fine print that gets buried in 85 pages of acquisition paperwork. The part that said any staffing decisions related to operational personnel had to be approved by something called a continuity lead, and that position was still vacant. Time to establish new command structure. The first unofficial briefing happened by accident, or at least that's what I told myself. We were supposed to be reviewing asset inventories with Titan's integration team, standard due diligence stuff. But Chelsea had what she called delegate fatigue, so she forwarded the meeting invite to me without reading the agenda. Perfect operational security failure on her part. Nicole Hamilton, one of Titan's senior lawyers, asked about our safety performance metrics for the past 3 years. Pretty basic question for anyone who'd actually been running operations. Chelsea stared at her like she'd been asked to explain quantum physics in French. I waited a beat, then said, "You'll find those in tab 3 of the operations dashboard. Lines 58 through 74 include recovery data for incident response protocols." Dead silence for about 5 seconds. Then Nicole said, "Perfect, thanks, Roy." After the call, I got a message from Titan's integration office. "Would you have time for a quick call about operational continuity?" That's when I knew I'd made contact with the real decision makers. Time to establish proper communications. I thought about it for exactly 30 seconds. I wasn't going to blow up NDAs or burn bridges just to play office politics. But I also wasn't going to sit there and watch 15 years of work get destroyed by incompetence. One call, 15 minutes off the official calendar. Basic operational briefing. That first call turned into 3 more by the end of the week. I didn't editorialize, didn't badmouth Chelsea or Brittany, just answered what they asked. In the Rangers, we call it just the facts, ma'am. No opinions, no spin, just ground truth. "Do you have post-acquisition risk assessments?" "Yes, I built them in Q2. "Any concerns about the safety protocol migration?" "Yes." "Here's the audit trail showing what could break. Any indication current leadership isn't aligned on Q4 deliverables?" I attached 2 different strategy documents, one from our engineering team, one from Chelsea's fantasy world. I never said I told you so. The documentation spoke for itself. That's how you build credibility. Let the evidence do the talking. By the 3rd call, the tone changed completely. Nicole brought Anthony. Anthony brought another executive. Then their legal counsel joined. They stopped calling it a chat, started calling it a transition review. The cavalry was forming up. That's when Anthony asked the question that changed my life. "Roy, if there were an ideal role for you post-acquisition to maintain operational continuity, what would that look like?" I didn't hesitate. Interim COO for transition operations. Not permanent, not glamorous, just honest. I didn't want a corner office or a fancy title. I wanted control over the bridge until we got through the storm. Mission-focused leadership. Anthony nodded and typed something I couldn't see. 2 days later, a Titan lawyer sent me a document labeled Transition Staffing Notes, Internal Review Only. I read it twice, then a third time. My name was there in the continuity lead slot with a checkbox next to it. Checked. The pieces were falling into place. Meanwhile, Chelsea was hosting Innovation Fridays with beanbag chairs and kombucha. She asked the finance team why cash flow couldn't just mean selling more stuff. She suggested we disrupt our EPA compliance protocols because they were slowing down our velocity. Complete disconnection from operational reality. She had no clue about the calls, no idea about the documents, no clue that the acquisition agreement she'd signed in blind faith was about to execute a change of command. The breaking point came on a Tuesday morning. Chelsea posted a company-wide message on Slack. Huge win. We've migrated all compliance workflows to a new cloud-based solution. Faster, cheaper, better. I read it 3 times just to make sure she'd actually written migrated all compliance workflows about systems that handled legal documents for an $850 million acquisition. That's what we call a career-limiting move in the military. My phone started ringing within an hour. Legal couldn't access contract databases. Safety management was locked out of inspection workflows. Procurement was stuck talking to a chatbot that answered every question with "I'm still learning." 5 critical suppliers were frozen in the new system. No tax documentation, no background checks, no payment authorization. One of them threatened to involve their legal team if the issue wasn't resolved by end of business. When your supply lines are cut and your suppliers are talking lawyers, you're looking at mission failure. I found Chelsea in the break room hosting something called Transformation Tuesday. She was drinking cucumber water and drawing flowcharts on butcher paper while the company burned down around her. "We've got a serious problem," I told her. "The compliance migration broke everything." She looked up from her flowchart and grinned like someone who'd just parallel parked a school bus. "Minor hiccup, Roy." "Growing pains." The sales rep said their AI platform scales with organizational needs. "Their AI doesn't file EPA reports, Chelsea." She blinked like I just made up the term EPA on the spot. Complete loss of situational awareness. Anthony from Titan was on an emergency call within 2 hours. He didn't yell, didn't even sound annoyed, just asked one simple question. Who authorized the system migration? Chelsea opened her mouth to answer, but I held up my hand. "I'll send you a complete breakdown. Decision logs, approval chains, timeline documentation. Time to deliver the after-action report that would end this operation." I had everything. Screenshots of Slack conversations where Chelsea told Brittany to just rip the Band-Aid off. Email threads where department heads asked for more time to review the migration plan. Meeting notes where I'd specifically warned about compliance risks. Complete documentation package, ready for deployment. I sent it all to Anthony in one clean package. Time-stamped, documented, objective. No editorializing needed. The facts spoke for themselves. That's how you conduct a proper debrief. Then Chelsea tried to spin it. She told Titan's team that I'd been resistant to innovation, that I'd created gaps in the legacy system, that she was future-proofing operations, and I just couldn't adapt to modern business practices. What she didn't know was that I documented those conversations too. When Anthony got my second email package, he replied with one word: received. 2 days of radio silence. Then something interesting happened. I wasn't officially invited to Titan's internal integration planning meeting, but when the meeting notes got distributed, my name was all over them. Supplier impact assessment, Roy P. to provide timeline, system restoration roadmap, Roy engineering analysis, compliance review, reference Roy's audit documentation. Chelsea wasn't mentioned once. The command structure was already shifting and she didn't even know it. The contract sat in my personal email for 2 weeks. Subject line, Steel Corps Transition Staffing Agreement, Final Draft. I didn't open it right away. Not because I was scared of what was in it, because I already knew what wasn't in it. Chelsea never mentioned getting this document. Probably assumed it was just legal paperwork that lawyers would handle. She didn't understand that the most dangerous orders in corporate America aren't shouted in boardrooms. They're buried in paragraph 2C of page 12, where nobody bothers to read. Rangers always read the fine print. Your life depends on understanding your operational parameters. Page 12, paragraph 2C. All staffing decisions related to transition phase operational personnel must receive final approval from the designated continuity lead, whose authority may not be overridden by temporary or interim executives not ratified by the acquiring company's board of directors. One more line. Continuity lead, Roy Patterson. They'd buried a tactical nuke in the contract. Chelsea had signed it thinking it was a formality. She'd authorized a document that handed me more operational authority than she had. The buyers had done it deliberately, quietly, legally. Mission parameters established. The morning before our final acquisition meeting, Chelsea sent another company-wide email. Subject, the future starts tomorrow. Steel Core joins Titan. 5 paragraphs about transformational synergies and next-level operational excellence. I read the words operational excellence and almost laughed out loud. This was a kid who'd asked me last week if gross margin meant we were being rude to customers. That evening, I got a message from Anthony Torres himself. Bring your business cards tomorrow. 5 words that confirm the operational plan. Time to execute. The final meeting was set for 10 a.m. in the main conference room. Pure corporate theater. Mahogany table, leather chairs, windows overlooking the parking lot where I'd been arriving at 7 a.m. for 15 years. Titan's entire team was there. Anthony Torres at the head of the table, Nicole Hamilton and her legal team flanking him like a proper command structure. On our side, Chelsea, Brittany, our HR director, and me, positioned for optimal observation. Anthony opened with standard military efficiency. Let's review the transition timeline and key personnel assignments. Chelsea jumped in like she was hosting a game show. Absolutely. We're excited, we're aligned, and we're ready to hit the ground running. She clicked to her organizational chart with her name at the top and everyone else reporting to her, including a box labeled Outgoing Personnel with my name in it. I want to personally thank Roy Patterson, who will be transitioning out over the next 2 weeks to make room for our new operational structure. There it was. Public execution attempt. Said like she was doing me a favor. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out one business card. Matte black cardstock, white ink, clean professional font. Roy Patterson, Interim COO, Transition Operations, Titan Corporation. I slid it across the table to Anthony Torres without saying a word. Mission executed. He picked it up, read it. Then came laughter. Not mean laughter. Delighted laughter. Like someone had just been handed the punchline to a joke they'd been waiting months to hear. Chelsea's smile faltered. Something funny? Anthony passed the card to Nicole, who read it and grinned like Christmas morning. Then Nicole opened her folder to page 12, yellow sticky tab visible. Actually, Miss Morrison, Roy represents transition leadership for Steel Core's operational integration. That authority was established in the staffing agreement you signed 3 weeks ago. Chelsea's face went white. There's no way that's legally binding. Anthony slid the contract across the table. Page 12, paragraph 2C. Roy Patterson, designated continuity lead, final authority over all staffing decisions related to operational personnel during the transition period. Your signature's right there on page 17. The room went dead quiet. Chelsea stared at the document like it was written in a foreign language, which, in a way, it was. The foreign language of actually reading what you sign. But he reports to me, she said finally. Anthony smiled like a chess master delivering checkmate. Not anymore. Nicole read from the contract. All transition, staffing, and operational decisions fall under the final authority of the designated continuity lead, Roy Patterson. Chelsea didn't sit down, didn't storm out, just stood there like someone had unplugged her from the wall. About that transition, Chelsea, we're making some adjustments to your role. Nicole pulled out another folder. Effective immediately, you'll be reassigned to quality assurance at our Phoenix facility. Day shift manufacturing operations. Same pay grade. That was the tactical beauty of it. They weren't firing her. They were giving her exactly what she'd tried to give me. A new assignment, whether she wanted it or not. Nicole handed me an envelope. Thick cardstock, Titan letterhead. Inside, my official appointment letter. Interim COO, Transition Operations. 90-day term with possibility of extension. Salary bump that would cover my kids' college tuition without me having to work weekends for the next 2 years. Thank you, I said. First words I'd spoken since sliding my business card across the table, looking forward to getting started. I stood up and shook hands with Anthony, Nicole, and the rest of the team. Professional, courteous, like this was just another successful mission completion. Behind me I heard Chelsea's voice one more time, soft and broken. Roy, you knew about this the whole time, didn't you? I turned around. Kid was still standing there holding her reassignment letter like a court summons. I knew you were in over your head, I said. I tried to help. You told me to stay in my lane, but you planned this. You set me up. I thought about that for a second. No, Chelsea. I just did my job. You signed a contract without reading it. I read everything. That's the difference between us. She looked like she wanted to say something else. Instead, she just stood there while everyone else filed out of the room. 3 hours later, Pat called to ask how the meeting went. Good, I told her. Really good. How does dinner at that steakhouse sound tonight? Can we afford it? Yeah, I said, looking at my new Titan badge. We can afford it. That evening, my phone buzzed with a text from Chelsea. This is Chelsea. I start in Phoenix next week. I wanted to say, I think I understand now what you were trying to tell me. I showed the message to Pat. She read it and looked at me. You going to respond? I thought about it. Kid was 28 years old. She just learned the hardest lesson in business. Authority without competence is just noise. I typed back, good luck. Keep your head down and learn the operations. You might surprise yourself. She wrote back immediately. Thanks. 6 months later, Anthony called. Titan wanted to make my interim position permanent. Full COO role, stock options, the works. I said yes. Sometimes the system works. Sometimes experience beats connections and competence trumps politics. Sometimes the guy who actually knows how to run the machine gets to run the machine. The Army taught me that real victories aren't about glory. They're about completing the mission. And my mission was keeping the lights on while everyone else figured out who was really in charge. Turns out it was me all along. I just had to wait for everyone else to figure it out.